Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regular meeting of the DeKalb City Council, February 11, 2019. Prior to our roll call this evening, I'd like to let folks know that if you have anything to speak on the agenda, or any items not on the agenda for that matter, do fill out a speaker request form. Give it to our city clerk, Lynn Fazekas. She'll get it up to me and we'll get you on and have you let us know whatever is on your mind this evening. It's great to see such a nice sized crowd tonight with the weather outside. So we've called the meeting to order, and I would now ask Lynn Fazekas to call the roll, please.
Jacobson. Finucane.
Here.
Stupija.
Here.
Fagan.
Here.
Noreko.
Here.
Verbic.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our 6th Ward Alderman, Mike Verbic, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. The first item tonight is the approval of the agenda as printed. If there are no additions or deletions to the agenda, and I see no one suggesting that, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mayor? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stupija, seconded by Alderman Fagan. Any discussion? Roll call.
Finucane.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noreko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. So moved. The agenda is approved as printed. As you may recall, a couple of weeks ago, we had first reading and approved on first reading a ordinance that we will be taken under a second reading request tonight. And part and parcel of, I think it's Chapter 2, City Council, is public participation. Within the ordinance that we have been discussing and will continue to discuss this evening will be a slight change in public participation. The way we've been doing things here is that anybody who would like to speak to any item not on the agenda is more than welcome to speak to that item under this portion of the agenda. However, with the possible provision that we're going to move most of the public comments up here, which would allow folks to speak their mind, if you will, on some subjects without necessarily having to wait around until an item that may be, later on in the evening. We thought that would be a way to move the meeting along. However, since we have not passed that ordinance, what I'd like to do tonight is to allow anyone who has filled out a speaker request form, and I only have 2 of those thus far, to have an option of whether to wait for the item on the agenda or to speak to that item now. I don't know if anybody would like to speak now and get home before we have 2 or 3 inches on the ground, but you're more than welcome to do that. My first person is Steve Capitan. Would you like to speak now, Steve, or?
No, my vehicle is ready for this now.
Okay, you'd prefer, okay? And Bessie Chronopoulos.
I was confused as to when I would be able to speak, so I thought I'd take my chance now.
You have your choice.
This is in regards to the change that seemingly council wants to make. I'm hoping that council doesn't want to make that change. It's a good idea to allow someone at the beginning to speak to an item that is on the agenda. Sometimes people have families to go to and other obligations, other meetings and so on, and they might not be able to to wait around till later. But generally speaking, it takes away from a meaningful dialogue if someone speaks too early, because you'll forget. You know, sometimes council will forget the points that a citizen wanted to make on a particular item. It's much better, much more participatory, allows for much more participation if you are allowed to, if the citizens speak before the item, not sooner. I think I sent you some thoughts on that. I did not get any response back from anybody other than Mr. Verbeek, so I'm not sure if you all read that. And, you know, granted, it was sent today, so maybe you might want to chew on it a little bit longer. And I'm not. Anyway, the other item is, it's come to my attention that sometimes there is texting going on during council meetings. I'm not sure if it's between council people or between council people and other people, but if that practice is indeed going on, you may want to consider not doing that. We don't need to text 24/7. When council is at a meeting, if you are texting, I don't think you should be. You should be paying attention to what's going on during the council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bessie. Thank you, Bessie. Okay, I have no other speaker request forms, so we'll move along to E, presentations. Our first presentation is Proudly DeKalb, Pride Awards, PRIDE, In Bowden's Gourmet Meats and Specialty Market, and Matthew Bulk. And I'm going to ask our city manager, Bill Nicholas, to speak to this item, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, we have two awards tonight, and as you mentioned, Mayor, the Citizens Environmental Commission has annually solicited nominations for our Pride Awards, and that's an acronym for People Responsible for Improving DeKalb's Environment Awards, for some time. And local residents, organizations, and businesses all have the possibility of being eligible for these awards. They're based on projects, activities, and programs that emphasize resource conservation, energy efficiency, beautification, waste reduction, and similar environmental improvements. A special category of these awards is reserved for individuals, and it's referred to as the Jim Grosslegs Pride Award in honor of Jim, who was a long-time devoted volunteer to our community and to an unwavering commitment to improving the environmental quality of DeKalb. This year, the 2018 Jim Grosslegs Pride Award is presented to Matthew Belk. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I thought so. Thank you for your generous and very practical contributions to sustainable gardens. Matt, if you've been involved, and I'm reading this, and I haven't in recent years been involved in this, but very, very proud that we have community gardens up on Dresser Road. But Matt would be seen early and late, helping people till the gardens, picking up after harvest of the residue that's left, and generally tidying up all through the year. Very selfless and very devoted, and he's truly an environmental advocate. So congratulations to you, Matt. And the 2018 Pride Award is presented to Inboden's Gourmet Meats and Specialty Market. Is anybody here tonight from Inboden's?
Right back here.
There we are. Okay. Oh, thank you. And Inboden's has done some pretty unique things in recent years. They are committed to sustainable practices in their store. They are trying to reduce the carbon footprint of what they do from day to day. They promote sustainable environmental practices throughout the store. And we are very proud to award this award to Inboden's Market. Thank you.
I see the chair of the Environmental Commission, Dan Kenny, is here. Dan, do you have any remarks on these awards? And do we not have a certificate of appreciation for? Yes, okay. Good.
Dan does, okay.
Well, Bill took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay.
So I'd just like to present the awards, and then, if it's okay, I'd like to have the council congratulate them. Claire wants to say a few words about Matt.
Yes, I'm a community gardener as well in the community garden plots, and Matt has been so instrumental and such a model for what a gardener should be and for what a community member should be, that we need to put these two together and realize that when we talk about sustainability and the support for the environment, we have to include people. So he has always been there for everyone. He's got 3 garden plots. He literally arranges them in such a way with wide paths, raised beds, thinking of the elderly, many of us who are there, who are older, who need had to have ease to get to garden plots. He makes it possible for those who need extra vegetables to come right into his plots and take what they need. The establishment of a watering system was a major effort that has not been seen in this garden plot before. All of us who use these plots had to go to the pumps connected to the water tower, fill buckets, drag them one way or the other across how many plots to get to our own. Massive amount of work, a massive amount of energy. He literally worked with someone who donated piping and has now laid pipe across every single one of these rows so that we can simply turn a spigot on, stick on the hose, and water our garden plots. This was extremely thoughtful. It actually saves water when you start talking about sustainability, because we're not sloshing water all over the place, we're only using it where we need. Matt has been thoughtful for all of us in every single way, and I want to very happily present him with this award.
Matt, if you would come up and accept the congratulations of each and every one of our aldermen. We are so appreciative of what you've done. We have so many great volunteers in this community. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'm a gardener too, and boy, when I heard that, it did give me this thrill. I congratulate you.
Matt, I'm the former chair of the Environmental Commission, so thank you very much.
Very welcome, sir. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Sorry, I mispronounced it. That's okay. Not the first time it happens.
I'm a gardener, but a great thing you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work. You bet. Once again, congratulations and thanks, Matt Belk, for assisting us. Now, we see about 3 folks from Inboden's, and Dan, if you'd like to introduce our folks, and
Sure.
we'd also like to present them an award.
This is Jessica Flinginger and Dustin Inboden. And I don't have too much to add to what Bill's already said about that, but they've done a lot of great things in their store over the last few years here to conserve energy and help the environment in DeKalb. So thank you very much.
Please.
Congratulations. Dustin.
Congratulations. Enjoy your store. It's tremendous.
Oh, it is great.
Love it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the store too. It's tremendous. The first place I went to was your store, and I've been back there so many times. It is great.
We love being learners, and we love it and appreciate it even more. I know.
Great work, great place.
Squeaky one here.
Thanks again, and we offer our congratulations to Matthew Belk for his receiving a Proudly DeKalb Pride Award, and to the folks at Inboden's for receiving their Pride Award. And thank you to the Environmental Commission for facilitating that. Okay, we have another very special presentation recognizing and congratulating our Deputy Fire Chief Jim Zarek for 29 years of service to the City of DeKalb on the occasion of his retirement. And again, I'd ask City Manager Nicholas to make a few remarks.
Yes, this is personal and professional for me. Jim started as a firefighter when I was department head. I was Captain Code, and he was off and running on shift and was very busy. 29 years later, he has been for some time serving as Deputy Fire Chief for training, and he's had a remarkable career. We're very proud of him. Jim has a few remarks to make.
Yeah, thank you, Council, Mayor, City staff. When Bill asked me to come to the meeting and asked me to say a few words, I'm like, what do I got to say? But I did come up with a few words, and I came to the realization that 30+ years ago when I filled out an application, I really had no idea where I was going to go with my career. Like many young people, 21, 22 years old, they're just wanting to get and work. Now, since looking back, hindsight, I want to thank the city for providing me the career that I have, the opportunity to become the fire officer I am, the opportunity to become the citizen I am here in the community. It is, opportunities that I've had just from working here that have helped me grow and helped me be there. For that, I'll be ever grateful, ever thankful, and really appreciate it. And as I'm leaving, I'm going to issue a challenge, not only to the employees of the city, city staff, but additionally the elected. And that challenge is basically 4 words. Remember who we are. As we go out here, one of the things that we're often called is called public servants. And that's what we're here to do. Our jobs, whether elected or we're getting paid, is to serve the public, to ensure those that live here, visit here, work here, have a safe and enjoyable and prosperous time while they're in the city. Ultimately, that's our job. So my challenge is to you, to everybody who works here, is remember who we are as we go forward from here. So once again, thank you for the past 29 years. It's been a great run. Now I get to go enjoy my grandkids.
Right. Jim, thank you. Please accept our congratulations here from the
Mayor, wait a minute. You don't get away that easy. A person who's worked 29 years has found much reward and has experienced much sacrifice, and just as much as what he's experienced, his family has experienced. So you have some family here tonight, I take it?
Yes, I do.
Why don't they come up? We have a couple of things for you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, with me tonight is my wife, Beth, and my youngest son, Logan. We do have 4 other kids who are scattered to the 4 ends of the country, it seems like. Logan here is actually following my footsteps, kind of. When he graduates high school this year, in July, he ships out for the Navy, become active duty, and he's going to be a Navy fireman. So, you gotta say I'm proud of that.
Thank you. So, a certificate of recognition, Jim Zarek, January 15th, 1990 to February 15th, 2019. On the occasion of your retirement, the City of DeKalb City Council and its staff extend sincere thanks and appreciation in recognition of 29 years of service to the city of DeKalb and the DeKalb Fire Department. Just so it's not lost. Now, there are certain times when you cannot use this, Jim. I have to present this to Jim very quick. Well, this is good. Now,
Jim, please accept our congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Great.
Thank you for all that it's done.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah, not tonight.
Again, Beth and Logan and your other kids, hope to take good care of that guy, okay? Thank you. Appreciate it, Jim. Congratulations. Okay, moving right along, we have another presentation, and this by the DeKalb Firefighters Historical Foundation. And prior to their presentation by, I think, Todd Stofa, Bill Nicholas would like to make a few comments.
Thank you. Just very briefly, Todd is the captain with our DeKalb Fire Department. He also serves as chair of the DeKalb Firefighters Historical Foundation. This foundation was established in 2012 to collect, preserve, and display documents, artifacts, and apparatus that explain the long history of the department. By the way, that department will celebrate its sesquicentennial year from 1869 to 2019 this year. So Todd is here to inform the council about some plans that the foundation has to celebrate. Todd.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, community. As Mr. Nicholas said, my name is Todd Stofa. I'm captain with the fire department. I've been here a little over 20 years. I also serve as the chair of the Historical Foundation. With me tonight is Adam Miller, a firefighter paramedic. He serves as our secretary treasurer for the Historical Foundation. With that being said, I am proud and honored to be here tonight to share with you all that it's the 150th anniversary of this great fire department in this great city. The DeKalb Fire Department got its start back in 1869. This makes us one of the oldest fire departments in the state of Illinois. We're up there with some of the top departments. Also along with some of the top fire departments in the country. The history of this great city has been driven by its past, the events, the innovations, the disasters, the good and the bad of the history has shaped this city. And through it all, the DeKalb Fire Department has been part of that. Your DeKalb firefighters have stood the test, endured the worst disasters, the fires, the emergencies, and have helped pave the path of this city's history. There's nothing more ingrained in a city's history than the fire service. And we're proud of that. DeKalb firefighters are not just employees of this city. We are residents, we are advocates, we are proud members of this community, and we serve it with pride and honor every day. Our history is deep. Dates back to 1869 when the very first fire chief, Mr. William Miller, led this department. Chief Miller was Isaac Elwood's brother-in-law. Not sure how he got the job. I got a few ideas. In the early days, back in 1869, it was a fully volunteer department with only a handful of members. In 1904, due to the growing city and the demands, the department became a fully paid, full-time fire department, which it is today. The funny thing is, members back in 1904, they worked 7 days straight. On Sunday night, they got 12 hours to go home, visit with their family, take care of business in their house, and they would come back to work for another 7-day stretch. They alternated those 12 hours off in between the members so that it was always staffed. Another very key point of the history of this fire department is the very first motorized fire engine was struck and hit by a train and destroyed right down here at the corner of 4th and 23, the very first motorized engine. Through the years, much has changed. Technology, innovation, the way we practice medicine, you name it, but the goal, the history, and the traditions remain the same today. Today, we carry on the same performance with the same resolve to get the job done, to provide the best service, and to help those in need on their worst days. We are what they call an all-hazards department. I know the council's heard this term before. Being where we are in this state, we cover everything. We cover all hazards. We do the same job as the big cities do. We cover everything from hazardous materials to technical rescue to normal fires, emergency services, paramedicine, you name it, we do it, and we're proud of that. This past year has been the busiest year in the history of the DeKalb Fire Department. We topped out at over 6,300 calls for service, making that the busiest year on record. And the way this January is starting out, or just finished January, is, I believe, Chief, the busiest January that we have on the books. So what does this grand endeavor mean to us, 150 years? It means we're going to celebrate a little bit. We're going to share our history with the community. We're going to hold some events, bring our retirees and some of our past members back into the firehouse. We want them to share those traditions and those history moments from back through the years, and we want to share those and be proud of that. We're also looking to hold a few other events throughout the course of the year, and we're possibly going to hold a formal fundraiser event to focus on the Historical Foundation's main goal, and that is to build and run a historical museum for the fire service and an educational center for the young and the children of this community. So I ask that you please stay tuned for the events to be coming in the near future. In the meantime, we invite you to learn about our past, our history. Stop in at the fire station, meet the members, talk to the chief, talk to any one of us, and learn about the events that got us to this point where we are today. So it's my privilege to say, on behalf of myself, the members of the fire department, on behalf of the fire chief, we thank you. We thank you for allowing us to serve and make this community be the best that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Evan. Good to see you.
Todd, nice job. Thank you.
Okay, we look forward to a number of the events that Todd had mentioned as it relates to the 150th anniversary, so congratulations. Okay, we move now to appointments, and we have a fire department related event here also. We need to appoint Fire Chief Jeff McMaster to the Fire Pension Board, and I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Norrico. Any discussion? Bill, do you want to speak to that item at all?
No, sir.
I don't think we have to do that. Roll call, please.
Stupija,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes.
Aye.
Motion passes. Jeff, you've got another thing to do, and I would like to remind everyone that this is a bylaw position that has to be filled by our fire chief, Eric Hicks, that had been serving prior to his retirement, and now, Jeff, it's yours, so congratulations. Item G on our agenda tonight, consent agenda. All of these items are normally listed on the agenda as a consent agenda, and they're enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a council member. Let me read each of the items, and then I'll entertain a motion unless someone would like to remove one of the items. Number one, minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 28, 2019. Number two, minutes of the regular City Council meeting of January 28, 2019. Number three, accounts payable and payroll through February 11, 2019 in the amount of $2,103,155.39. Number four, Resolution 2019-034, authorizing a waiver of competitive bidding and payment to Liftoff in the amount of $40,459.20 for renewal of the City of DeKalb Microsoft Office 365 subscription. Number 5, Resolution 2019-035, authorizing the staffing of 4 seasonal public works maintenance positions, 1 airport maintenance position, and 1 payroll and compensation analyst position. And finally, number 6, Resolution 2019-036, designating Assistant City Manager Raymond Munch as the authorized agent of the City of DeKalb for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund Program. Unless there is a desire to take one of those items off of the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. David?
I know there was some consternation last week related to a no-bid item we had on water meters. And while I understand why we do it the way we do, being that it's a sole source vendor, I guess the question that I assume will come up this weekend or this week is why are we waiving bids on the liftoff contract, and just wanted to have that discussion in the public.
Would you like to remove that from the consent agenda?
Please.
Okay. Now, removing item 4 from the consent agenda, that leaves 5 items as read on the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Jacobson, seconded by Alderman Fanouken, that we approve the consent agenda as amended. Roll call.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. So we'll move item number 4 under the consent agenda, Resolution 2019-034, and unless, Bill, you have any objection to that, I think we'll put that right up front. Is that okay, David? Right up front, so it will be the first resolution under the resolution section, and then we'll move on. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, etc. Okay? We have no public hearings tonight, and again, I'd remind anyone who has come in late tonight, if you do have any items that you'd like to speak to tonight, please give your speaker request form to Lynn Fazekas up here, and we'll get you on. Okay, we move along to I, considerations. The DeKalb Public Library Annual Report by Executive Director Emily Faulkner. And prior to Emily, you're speaking, I'm going to ask Bill to make a few comments.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to yield to Emily Faulkner.
She's right here.
Emily, there she is. Yeah, I was looking at this and everything. Emily is obviously here to give the 2018 library report, and I'll yield to her.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me this evening. First things first, I had apparently sent a draft with my documents. You mistakenly received a document that had a lot of yellow highlighting. That was last year's numbers. I apologize for that. I know Ruth said she'd sent you this year's, which does not have those numbers, but if you want to compare and contrast, the correct ones are in here, and you can see how things changed over the year. So you now have the correct information. I'd like to give you
Emily, excuse me, so the information that we have in front of us is something other than what we had received as background information?
Yes, I believe so. And it's mostly, so the areas that are different, I'd highlighted that there would be an attachment coming. The attachment is correct. It's the fiscal year circulation report of items loaned, items held, and the amount of money held in the DeKalb County Community Foundation. Those numbers changed. I gave you the year from 2017 by mistake.
I just wanted to make clear so that we were looking at the right
Yes.
right set of numbers.
All of our financial information, other than that amount held in the DCCF, was correct. It's just I had given you, I thought I had set the right one. It was labeled wrong.
Emily, we've given the council the correct ones.
Yes, thank you. So you should see those in front of you.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a little bit more of a holistic look at what we've been up to for the last year and a little bit of a vision for the future. Just to keep with tonight's theme, the first couple things on my list are that over 2018, we did work closely with Fire Chief Jeff McMaster to redo our disaster plan and safety manual. It hadn't been done since the building was revised, so now we have an updated plan. And we also, last year, had a number of fire exit signs that had been suggested to us that we've had added for additional safety. There were some areas that were overlooked in the original construction, so we have additional fire exit signs. The library board's been continuing to review and update library policies, with nearly all policies being revised in the past 2 years. We worked to convert the library finances to a modern system, replacing the paper system that had previously been in place, and also worked to correlate our fund lines to the city's fund lines, which should ease auditing and any other comparisons after this year moving forward. Similarly, we have procedures for counting money, depositing checks, and other daily financial interactions that we've evaluated for efficiency and streamlined to evaluate the time required of our staff. And we'll continue really a process of reviewing and evaluating contracts with external vendors with an eye to reducing costs and improving efficiency. Notable reductions have been made, especially in the areas of IT and waste collection, although we've made a number of other reductions by reevaluating our service plans. In a more front-facing way, we've been able to use our expanded space to increase the number of programs for our patrons. In 2018, we had approximately 1,550 programs, during which we welcomed more than 25,000 attendees. And that's in addition to the daily work of providing reference assistance in person, by phone, through email, circulating hundreds of thousands of materials, maintaining our collection, and offering study rooms and meeting rooms for the public use for their own programming and research needs. This year we were able, thanks to a grant from the Wurlitzer Foundation, to open our sound studio. It's approximately 80 square feet, sound-resistant room. It's located in the historic Heisch building, and it's available with a variety of quality recording equipment for people to make podcasts, record music, or do any other sort of sound recording. And then in addition to that, we have editing software for them to work with their files once they're done. So we've been rolling that out and letting people start using it. And we're working on some programming to help expand the use of that now that it's available. This summer we had more than 1,700 kids, teens, and adults participate in our summer reading program. Our fun thing during the summer this past year was a Book Madness bracket-style competition for the best children's book. It turns out that the people of DeKalb feel that The Day the Crayons Quit was the best. We did try to keep old books and the new books separate so that there wasn't too much, battling it out right at the beginning, but in the end, The Day the Crayons Quit won. If you haven't read it, it's pretty funny. It's the crayons writing a letter to their owner about how they feel about their current usage. This year we're working on an outreach program that will take place around the city of DeKalb and allow people to participate by looking at our different landmarks and businesses and do some summer reading scavenger hunt. We've had a number of Healthy Mind and Healthy Body initiative programs with the DeKalb Kiwanis Club, which feature programming pertaining to physical, mental, and emotional health and sustainable living. The ones for teens have been particularly popular, as was Cheeses Around the World. Cheeses Around the World had about 70 people come and taste test different cheeses, which was quite fun. Our largest programs that we do for the community, we now have 4 separate ones. The one we debuted last year and will be continuing this year was World of Reading, which is the children's storybook-themed program. This year we're doing 8 worlds in one day, featuring Oz, Narnia, Westeros, Seussville, and any number of, 8 worlds altogether. But it involved people coming and creating crafts, activities about modern and classic literary characters, meet and greets, performances, costumes, and games. It's now an annual event, and we saw quite a few people come to it last year. We're hoping it's an even bigger event this year. Looking forward to 2019, we are in the middle of strategic planning. 2018 marked the end of our current strategic plan, and we've been working from late 2017 through 2018 to do a multifaceted approach to gathering community feedback. We gathered about 300 people contributing their thoughts through surveys, in-person interviews, listening sessions with the community, and online survey results as well. So we're working to consolidate that information with the library board and the management team in order to put together a new plan that will take us from 2019 through 2022. And that should be taking, we should be working on it. We had a meeting scheduled for last Wednesday, or the Wednesday before rather, and so we're rescheduling that. So it may take us a little bit longer, but hopefully the plan will be in place soon. As for the rest of 2019, we're hoping that it will be a year of creativity. We've recently added new databases to help would-be crafters learn new skills. Are looking to meet increased demand for classes for all kinds of making, from 3D printers to laser cutting to hands-on traditional artistry. Our kid-focused Maker Mondays and Teen Tech programs have been very well attended, and we're adding a level for creative tweens, which are our not quite teenagers, but a little bit too cool to be elementary school kids anymore. And we've created a number of STEM kits for in-library use, and are currently pursuing grants to have STEM kits that we'd be able to have people check out and take home with them. So inviting making and creativity and experimentation in the library and outside. Similarly to that, we've received a grant from the DeKalb County Community Foundation to add mobile hotspots to our lineup of items available for loan. These will enable patrons to borrow a hotspot for the lending period and have free unlimited access to the internet during that lending period. They've been very popular in other communities as a way for people who can't afford reliable internet service to have access in their home to apply for jobs, communicate with loved ones, or learn new things. Those will be available this spring. And in conclusion, it's been a very busy and fulfilling year at the DeKalb Public Library. We've got a good team. Every staff member is dedicated to the ideals of the public library and interested in serving the people of DeKalb. I also want to thank you all for your support, both city staff and the council over the past year. It's always helpful to have support from the council, and I know I've met with most of you about our strategic planning and been able to incorporate some of that input into our process moving forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you've got.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, do stay at the podium if you would. Alderman Jacobson.
Can we make sure that the updated backup gets tagged to our backup for the meeting tonight in case anyone from the public is interested in all of the updated numbers, please? Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Noriko. Thanks, David.
My family and I have always loved the library, and we certainly use it enough. I've noticed the expansion of activities covering some ages that we don't hit anymore, but other activities. I went to the information on the new database, Creative Bug. Mm-hmm. And it was fun, and it kind of opened up new opportunities for me in all my free time. But I'm, continually grateful to the library. My heart always swells, and I always feel good when I walk in there.
Well, it's nice to see you there so as often as we do, and we are hoping to add even more programming for. We do a lot for teens and kids, and we are doing a lot for adults too, but we're hoping to add even more to appeal to a more diverse range of adults coming in, because that has been an area that's come up a lot.
And my goal for 2019 is to not have as many overdue books.
Well, we support you in that too.
Any other comments? Alderman Stepanian.
I'd like to comment to the library. I've recent it many times. But what I noticed you didn't mention is you have a Friends of the Library.
We do.
Which is a volunteer group, and I believe they're having a fundraising this week.
Yeah, they are actually. Thank you for bringing that up. We are having a Love Your Library type event with our Friends group. They're a very dedicated group of supporters. They raise thousands of dollars every year through their book sales and through donations to assist with our programming. A lot of our, especially our summer reading programs and children's programming is supported through that. They'll be having a fundraiser and I think a gift drawing for a raffle on Wednesday night, starting I believe at 6:30, and running through our board meeting. So I'll get to be there at the beginning of that. But if anyone is interested in joining the Friends or learning more about it, I'd be happy to follow up with anyone and let them know about that. But it's a very great organization, and we're lucky to have as many dedicated people on that as we do.
And it is a hard-working group that does, they run book sales and so
They're running out of room right now. They need me to move the books out of the way so they can make room to figure out more books for the sale that comes up.
And they can always use more hands, right?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Alderman Fanouken.
Emily, would you recognize your coworker back there, please, too?
Oh.
Because she's very integral in what you do.
Yes, Samantha Hathaway is with me. She's our public relations and events manager, and she does do a lot of outreach to the community and try to get the word out about our programs and events. So if you hear something on the radio or you see something in the paper, Samantha probably has something to do with it. So, thank you.
Any other comments? You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, the publicity for the library, just on an ongoing basis, is really, really good. And I commend you for continuing to publicize this treasure that we have.
Yeah.
My final comment is, it's been a tough year and a half with the library and finances, et cetera. I think hopefully we've got that now on a level keel. I know we're going to be asked to consider an ordinance tonight abating some taxes. And I don't know if you're going to stick around to speak to that or if Bill's going to explain that. But I noticed that you have put that in the background, backup material, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I wanted to let you know what all's going on there, but I think we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with some of that. So hopefully in the next few years, that'll be a past discussion.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Emily. Any other comments? Appreciate your report. Thank you. And again, we will be seeing first reading of the ordinance to abate the taxes levied for the library later on in tonight's agenda. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, where are we? Item number 2 under considerations. Request for proposals for city legal services. And I'm going to have City Manager Nicholas to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lengthy background report for the council, and that report details the history of our relationship with Frieder's Law. There is also a lot of detail about the considerable breadth and depth of what we expect of a city attorney, and I would add that Mr. Frieders has met these requirements very productively and very professionally for a number of years. What's before you tonight is whether you feel, as we approach the 7th anniversary of our first contract with Frieder's Law, that there is a usefulness in going out and requesting proposals from other firms. And so I present that to you tonight and await your direction.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to let the public know that this item has been brought forward at the request of 2 of our aldermen, Alderman Verbeek and Alderman Jacobson, if I recall. And we'd like to get comments tonight from City Council and from aldermen regarding this, the possibility of asking for an RFP, a request for proposal for city legal services. So with that, I would entertain any comments regarding whether or not we want to move forward with this, why we should, why we shouldn't, when we should, when we shouldn't, whatever. Does anybody have any comment? Alderman Fagan.
This question of the city manager, how are you going to go about with this? I mean, one of the things that we've got to do is make sure that it's a good working relationship, whoever you choose. What kind of formality are we going to be doing on this?
Well, I'll have to come up with an RFP, a professional document that is circulated, and there'll be a period for response, and then review the firms that will respond and present that to you at a future council meeting. Probably be out for 3 weeks at least.
Okay. Were you referring, Pat, to the relationship between the city manager and our legal attorney or our legal services?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm getting my point to is, when, this, whoever we pick for legal, we want to make sure that that we know them, we work with them, get to know them, get to know all the people that bring in their bids. Make sure that we can work with the council, the city manager, the staff, other taxing bodies. Just that rather than just going out and getting the numbers. We want to make sure we've got.
Right, and I think we have to make one thing perfectly clear, and that is the city attorney, the legal services, work for the city council.
Right.
Bill, did you want to make a
Yes,
comment?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor, if you want to finish your thought, and then I just wanted to add something.
Yeah.
But I was going to make that point, which is an important point. And then also, I wanted to point out that when you're doing an RFP for professional services, you're looking for, I believe the artful phrase is an indication of pricing, but that should not be the sole or even the only or the most important consideration that the council will ultimately have to discuss.
Absolutely, yeah. There are a number of considerants before the final decision is made. What I liked about the background material, and I don't know if our city councilmen agree with me or not, but it was pretty comprehensive. And, you know, I think that when that request for proposal goes out, it does need to cover those areas. It needs to be very explicit in what we're asking for. That's in my opinion. Now, Alderman Favor.
To add to what you were saying, I think that's one of the things that I guess I'm going to be concerned with looking at an RFP is that Dean does so much work for the city, and the hours that he puts in are beyond what I think is listed as the 3 days a week at 8-hour days. I'm concerned that when we get the RFP back that we are not going to have the comprehensive level of service that we receive today or the quality of service that we receive today.
Thank you.
I have to agree with you, Alderman. I've looked at this, and I've also had a chance to hear what this council had said several months ago, and got the comparative prices and so forth. And I know I've only been here a short time, but obviously I also have to go to the attorney frequently because there are questions I needed answered. They were answered immediately, professionally. Need I say more? To go to the RFP, whatever here, I have no objection to that because one should always be aware, and council, everyone should know what else is out there and what are the other communities doing. Do we want to be in-house or do we want to just contract? That's probably about all.
Thank you. And I think your comments ring true with almost everybody on this council that I've talked with over the past year and a half regarding the quality of service. And as Tony suggested, the breadth of services that Dean Frieders has provided us. Alderman Fanouken?
Again, that's where I was going to start out, just with the quality and quantity of service that Councilor Frieders has provided in the 5.5 years that I've been on council has been a tremendous benefit to me personally, and I'm sure to the rest of council. However, having said that, I also do understand the desire to go out for a request for proposal, to get a look. One of the questions I have about the process is, since council works for the council, will we get a chance to have presentations from the respondents to us rather than just city staff?
Yes, in fact, I think that's the only appropriate way to proceed. I think I might be involved in the presentations as well, but as it's been said here tonight, and as I said in my background, the city attorney is supervised and directed by the city council. So
we would certainly want you involved in that, Bill. I mean, you've done so much work here in presenting this background material and laying out the parameters, if you will, of this position. And, you know, I would invite and solicit any member of the public or any member of the city council for that matter, after having looked at the points brought forward in the background material, and that was on the website, is that correct? To make those additions, let us know. What I hear going forward here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Consul, is that we are very pleased with the quality of service that we've been receiving, but we feel that requesting a request for proposals over the next several weeks or so would be the appropriate thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I hear?
Yes.
Do we need a motion to that effect? If so, I'd entertain a motion. We do not? Okay.
This is a consideration.
It's not a consideration. Okay, very good.
Right. Mr. Mayor, though, if I could go a little bit further with my comments, and since we could maybe take one of our committee of a whole meetings and reserve that for presentations to council, I think in a month, 6 weeks, whatever the timeline calls out to be, I think that'd be an appropriate way to do it and make it a public presentation.
That's prior to the request for a proposal?
No. After all the respondents to the proposal, I think that, like I asked previously, that we should see the presentations from them, and I think it would be best to do in a public setting.
Okay. Alderman Jacobson?
Again, I think it's important to look back to how we got to where we are today, to understand what some of the impetus was in going with outsourced legal. Obviously, before everyone else's time here, we had in-house counsel, and we felt that counsel was not as broad as it should have been, and an understanding of both current to-date issues and to some of the realities in the actual legal world. Having in-house attorneys, we had a budget of, if I remember correctly, $450,000 for those services. When unfortunately one of those attorneys passed away and the other attorney decided to leave her employment with the city, we were faced with the reality of having no city legal representation, and it was decided at that point to go ahead and hire an interim, which we had, a very prominent Sycamore attorney that is well known throughout the community. I clearly remember sitting in the meeting where he came in and effectively told us that the job of city attorney, as he saw it, as he was practicing it for that several month period, was no more than a 20 or 25 hour a week job at absolute most. And it was one of the big influences of why we went toward contracting separately for those legal services. We assumed a rate of about 20 hours a week at about 100 or 100 and a quarter an hour, and assumed that we would see a tremendous cost savings from it. In going out to a firm that we assumed we'd save significant dollars, our first year's legal costs with that firm were outrageous. They were above and beyond what it costs to have 2 in-house attorneys. And that's why we selected Mr. Frieders to continue on. We were happy with the service he provided at that point, and realized that the cost, for the most part, was being eaten up by administrative overhead of the firm, and 98 or 99% of the work was actually being done by Mr. Frieders. And we felt comfortable in having him come on after that point to keep the continuity of services at a negotiated significant discount over what we had paid the firm he was previously with. The discussion at that time clearly focused around, again, continuity of services, knowing what we were getting, understanding that we were going to see a benefit over the previous year or two of services with Mr. Frieders' former legal firm. And it made sense at that point, rather than again leave us in a position without any legal representation, to go ahead with the understanding, at least as I was under the impression, that at some point we would go back out and see if that was an adequate or appropriate price in the market for city legal services. Understanding that there are again, a multitude of options for us, whether it be in-house or out-house or in-house or subcontracted, whether through a firm or through an individual. I think it's important, obviously, to understand those options that are back available to us and to see what provides the best value. Obviously, as belt tightening has occurred over the last many years, that has been one of our major commodity resources in terms of employment. And I think it's time that we go out and get an adequate understanding of, A, are we getting a great deal? We may be. And I think we need to decide that and understand that based on market conditions and put it out to a fair and adequate RFP process to see, A, what our options are, and B, what those costs may be, to see if there's any opportunity for any savings.
Do you feel then the RFP process that we've talked through thus far this evening, Dave, and what Bill explained he would do logistically to get this RFP formulated, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, but for the fact that, again, I think it's imperative that once we see some of those things, A, that we do have that opportunity to see
yes,
what the other options or what any options out there may look like, and don't go down the path that we are decided for sure that contracting out is the best opportunity. I would leave everything on the table to see what the most cost-effective delivery of good service will be. And again, that may require some trade-offs, that may entail a difference of how we do things. That may be a difference of splitting up some of these responsibilities elsewhere to see that best value. I just don't want to see that we go down a process and have the foregone conclusion of going down a path that it's already pre-decided. I'd like to see all options on the table and all service deliveries so that we can try to find the best value to provide and meet the needs that we have in the community.
Well, that's what the RFP should do.
That's the hope.
Alderman Verbeek.
And my request for this to be an agenda item is no reflection of your performance, Dean. I believe it's our responsibility as council members to review all services periodically, whatever those services may be. We can't get stuck in our ways. Thank you.
Any other comments? I appreciate the comments from a good number of city councilmen tonight. Bill, I appreciate the work that you've done to prep us, if you will. And what I would like to see then is, you know, and I know you've got a lot of things on your plate. Let's put together a process that we're comfortable with, run that by council, and we'll make this happen. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Now we move to J, resolutions. And for those of you who may have just happened in, our first resolution tonight is actually, and we'll call that number 1, is the resolution that was initially removed from the consent agenda. If you go...
Sorry, I'm wondering where you wanted to put that item G4 from the consent agenda?
Yeah, we talked about that. We're going to move that to item number 1 under resolutions. And then number 1 will become number 2. Number 2 will become number 3.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that seemed to be a fall of favor with everybody. So, okay. So, let me read that resolution. 2019-034, authorizing a waiver of competitive bidding, and payment to Liftoff in the amount of $40,459.20 for renewal of the City of DeKalb Microsoft Office 365 subscription. Since this has been taken off the consent agenda as a regular resolution, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Jacobson. And Bill, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, just a couple quick thoughts. What we're talking about here is a subscription for certain applications that are provided by a third-party service. It's called Liftoff. This affects a variety of our digital operations, including our ability to send and receive electronic mail. About a year ago, the council approved a 3-year locked-in price with Liftoff, and I learned about a week or 8 days ago, as I was preparing this agenda, that the subscription had expired. They still, even though we have a locked-in price, they want to be paid once a year, and that didn't happen. So I brought this before you to expedite it. I don't have the authority to spend $40,459.20. And I think if we were to go out, I know Microsoft has recently increased its pricing, and I can't say that if we walk away from this, we'll come away with a better price.
Any discussion? When I first met with Bill on this, and I review the agenda before our council sees it, just to make sure that I'm comfortable in terms of order, etc. And I read the backup material, as I'm sure you did, and my first question was, wow, that's a lot of money. But maybe that isn't a lot of money. I mean, and in the backup material, apparently, this does fall within the IT department's allocation of the 2019 annual budget. It falls slightly underneath that allocated budget number, and I'm told that the Liftoff/Microsoft 365 bid is very competitive in the marketplace. Mark, is that a fair point?
Yes, actually. When we went out to RFP or bid last year for this service, Liftoff came in as the lowest bidder, and they also have locked our pricing in for until January of 2021.
Yeah.
Microsoft has already raised their subscription prices, so the sense is that going out to bid at this point would render higher pricing than our locked-in pricing. So.
Okay, thank you. Bill, any further comments?
No, sir.
Alderman Jacobson.
Again, I think it's important to note we did go out for bid for this a year ago, and this was the pre-negotiated price for 3 years that we accepted, and we have the option to retain that price. So again, it's not like we aren't going into the market for an RFP. We've already done that process, and this yielded the best price, and that's why we're willing to waive it this year. And I wanted to make sure that that was out there and explained so that the public understood it.
So Dave, you pulled that off the consent agenda, but after having discussed it, after having looked at the background material, you're comfortable that that what we're doing is the correct thing to do. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Alderman Verbeek?
And then we can put measures in place to where this would not expire in the future, or get our action in advance, or what will we need?
You better believe it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. I'd entertain a roll call on this resolution, please.
Noriko?
Yes.
Verbic?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Stupidja?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
8-0.
Motion passes. Very good. Thank you very much. Resolution number 2, which is number 1 on your printed agenda, 2019-037, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the DeKalb Road District for contribution of funds for improvements to the intersection of Annie Glidden Road at Fairview Drive. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager Bill Nicholas, would you speak to this item, please?
Yes, Mayor. This item and the next item concern our very collaborative and productive relationship with the DeKalb, I was going to say Road District, I was going to say Park District, excuse me. Craig Smith, who's the road commissioner, could not be here tonight because he's out working on the roads, and he sends his apologies to you all. The first one has to do with a project that's now done, at least the portion that we were most concerned about, and that involved some road work down at the intersection of Annie Glidden Road and Fairview Drive in 2018, and I've identified the particular features of that project. There were some turn lanes, and there was reconfiguration of traffic signals, and there was a little bit of movement to try to better align the way Annie Glidden lines up with the toll facilities. Some improvement was made there. It wasn't perfect alignment, but within what could be done on a reasonable budget. The township has made available to us a contribution of $70,000 to reimburse a portion of our costs that were involved in that. Also, as part of this particular item, the road commissioner, Craig Smith, has requested conveyance of those portions of the right-of-way. These are not large portions, but adjacent to their area of jurisdiction. They have no value to us, but we know that they would be involved in maintenance of these areas in the future. So it's rather typical as a part of this type of agreement that we do so. So those two items in particular are on your agenda for this particular item. Recommend your approval.
Yeah. Any discussion? Roll call.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Yes.
Fanouken. Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noreko.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, Resolution 2019-038, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the DeKalb Township Road District pertaining to snow removal through May 1, 2020. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Stupedja. Bill, would you speak to this item?
I will. Andy Rye, our new street superintendent, is in the audience tonight. He can certainly speak to the fact that we collaborate with the road commissioner in times like this. We've had a particularly bad stretch of weather involving a lot of ice melt and plowing and so forth. Specifically, this agreement touches on some of the shared responsibility on Fairview from Route 23 to Annie Glidden, Gurler Road from Route 23 to South First Street, and Peace Road from Fairview Drive to Gurler Road. There are parts of these roadways where we have annexed, and so they would logically fall to us to maintain, and some that aren't. If we were to strictly follow the jurisdictional lines, we would raise our plow every 30 seconds and then drop them again, and they would do the same coming from the other direction. That doesn't make any sense. Certainly doesn't help the public in terms of safety. And so what we've proposed here is that we have a collaborative agreement pertaining to those particular roadways, and we recommend your approval.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noreko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 4, Resolution 2019-039, authorizing the initiation of project DKB 4556 to replace the existing visual approach slope indicator, VASI, units on runway ends 2, 20, and 27 with precision approach path indicator, PAPI, units at the DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport at an estimated total cost of $731,000, with a city contribution towards costs in the amount not to exceed $40,000, and authorizing a professional services agreement with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley, Inc. for architectural and engineering, planning, and special services. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Favor. Once again, Bill, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by reading the title, you've read most of the background. And this takes us into a unique world of acronyms in airport development. We have navigation aids, those lights along the runways. The particular acronym that applies to what we've had for 20 years is VASI, Visual Navigation Aids, and there's something, I don't know what I stands for, I'm sorry, I don't recall. And what we're wanting to do is replace those with newer and improved navigational aids, which are part of our 5-year plan, which we talked about at the last meeting, and also essential as we move toward a threshold that we talked about last week in a meeting at Ferranda's with a lot of stakeholders in the airport, trying to get us to the point where we can land planes on a regular basis serving NIU, serving local businesses of a larger size and dimension. PAPI, which stands for the Precision Approach Path Indicator, is a fairly expensive set of navigational aids. In fact, to replace what we have now with the PAPI units would cost $731,000. Happily, because of our long-standing relationship with the aeronautics folks at the state and federal level, we have this in our plan. We have to go through certain steps to get to the point where we would spend a local share, which would be somewhere around 5% of that, $36,000 to $40,000, and this will happen over the next year or so. But first, we have to get your permission to take on this project, and then also to hire the architectural engineering firm of Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley. Are they represented here tonight? Not tonight, but they were present at the presentation last week, and we talked a little bit about this. They're ready to go. So we heartily recommend that we proceed with this, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, we'll see if the council gives you permission. Roll call. Excuse me.
Question, please.
Yes.
I noticed that it's only 3 of the 4 runways. Why not all 4?
Well, we have 2 runways. We
Well,
have a lot of
that's the
taxiways.
3 of the 4 ends,
Yeah.
then maybe I'll
Yeah.
say.
Well, this is the scope of this particular project. You know, there's a very methodical list of projects, and so right now, this is what we have next up.
I was wondering if maybe 9 wasn't listed because we normally wouldn't have people coming in over Cortland that way or something. I didn't know if that was part of it.
There is a piece of this that is touching on how we control flights so that we can minimize or mitigate noise over Cortland. And I'll defer to Tom Cleveland if he has something he wants to add to that. Over there, Tom, or one of the...
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, 2 questions. The runway 9, PAPI, is FAA owned. They own it and operate it, so that's why we don't have runway 9 on this project. And then the next question, say that again if you would, please.
If we didn't bring many flights in that way because of the noise over Cortland, but apparently if it's FAA owned, then it's operated the same as the other runways.
Right, runway 9 brings them in over DeKalb, landing to the east, and runway 27 brings them into over Cortland, and that's the new ones we're putting in, which is a great safety factor for over the town of Cortland. We have these aircraft at the right altitude.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Answer your question, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, now the roll call.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 ayes.
So moved, thank you. Motion passes. Item number 5, Resolution 2019-040, authorizing the city manager to execute 6 farm lease agreements for 413.79 acres of land and 2 grain bins at the DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport for a period not to exceed 36 months. That would be March 1, 2019 through December 31, 2021. I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Stupedja. Bill, if you would speak to this item, please.
Briefly, we went out to bid in the second week of January for a number of things. We have 2 grain bins, which have a 30,000 bushel capacity. And then there's one very large plot of about 357 acres that would also fall under a leasehold. And then there are a number of smaller, irregular shaped pieces of land that total about 57 acres. The lease price on those has traditionally been controlled by the lease price for the larger parcel of land. So the results are shown in your background. In the case of the leasehold, we're looking for the higher price, not the lower price. The slightly higher price for the 357 acres was submitted by Don Halverson and Old Elm Farms. Steve Ward, who's principal of Old Elm Farms, is in the audience tonight. Their bid was substantially higher for the grain bins, so we've recommended that the council, as part of this action, award separate bids for contracts, one to the Halversons for the land and to Old Elm Farms for the grain bins. And then additionally, there's a table on page 10 of your background which denotes the varied acreages of the 5 other farm areas that were also bid out, and you see the prices that were received, and we're also recommending that you award contracts to these entities at those prices. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Stupedja?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Verbeek?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
8 ayes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 6, Resolution 2019-041, authorizing a 3-year agreement for engineering services with Fair Graham and Associates, LLC, for the 2019-2021 general street maintenance programs, with an initial fee for fiscal year 2019 not to exceed $165,000, and subsequent years to be negotiated and approved individually. I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
It's been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Verbeek. Bill Nicholas again.
Thank you, Mayor. So in state statute, there's something called request for qualifications, and with respect to engineering and architectural, and I believe also land surveying firms, it's very specific about something you can do as a public body and other public bodies can do to basically come up with a short list of, in this case, engineering firms that you can draw from in the course of a year or over a period of years. There are procedures in how you do this. You basically start at your best, in this case, the lowest price, and work down. Why would we do this? Well, because from time to time, there are lots of little projects to do, and if a firm tells you you can't rely on them because they're busy elsewhere, then you have to go to bid. And if this happens in the middle of a construction season, you might lose the balance of the season while you're going through the bid process, so forth. So according to the state parameters, we went out in 2018, created our own QBS list. We had 6 firms on that list. So why is this important? Well, we every year naturally look to our street maintenance program, and what we've got here is a proposal to you to work with Fair Graham over a period of 3 years rather than going out to bid 3 years in a row. Fair Graham is one of those 6 pre-qualified firms to draw from. We had looked at the top three, which includes Fairgram of Rochelle, Hampton Lindsay and Renwick of Elgin, and WBK Engineering of St. Charles. And in our audience tonight is Jason Stoll of Fairgram, who can help me if you have any questions after this. So, specifically, what we are looking for is help with, excuse me, I lost my place. Help with our engineering and professional fees for a program that would be somewhere in the vicinity of $1.5 million. And the budgeted price for this is $165,000. We're proposing a 3-year deal. The first year, their price would be locked in, not to exceed $165,000 for, this is field engineering. This isn't just sitting around and drawing plans. It's also doing the field work, which is exceptional. You have to get out every day and see what's going on at multiple sites. So it adds up to a lot of hours and a lot of expertise that has to be expended. In the second and third years, the general parameters being play, but we would want to give you an opportunity to look at the price. So we would have to go out and get an addendum to the contract based on price in the second and third year. That's how this system would work. It's the only way we could conceive of doing this over multiple years. And I want to thank Dean Frieders for working with us to figure this out, how we could do this. So with a strong recommendation from Public Works, we are recommending to you that we proceed with this 3-year professional services agreement with Fairgram.
So would this allow us to continue then to work with Zach Gell?
Yeah, Zach works with
Fairgram,
yeah,
right?
Yes, he is with Fairgram, and he's doing a variety of work with us, project review and so forth. That isn't part of this.
Yeah. Okay. It is not.
It is not.
It is not. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noreko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Those are our resolutions. Now we move on to K, ordinances, second reading. The first item, thank you, Lynn. The first item is we're being asked to create the Central Business District tax increment financing with omnibus approval of the following ordinances. May I read those, please, and then we'll entertain a motion. A, ordinance 2018-070, adopting tax increment allocation financing for the DeKalb Central Business District redevelopment project area. Second reading. B, ordinance 2018-071, approving the City of DeKalb, Illinois, DeKalb Central Business District redevelopment project, area tax increment financing district, eligibility study, and redevelopment plan and project. Second reading. C, ordinance 2018-072, designating the proposed DeKalb Central Business District redevelopment project area pursuant to the Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act. Second reading. Item D, ordinance 2018-073, adopting an amendment to the City of DeKalb Central Area Tax Increment Financing District. Second reading. And E, ordinance 2018-074, adopting an amendment to the City of DeKalb Tax Increment Financing District Number 2, second reading. There's considerable background material on this. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas, please.
As you mentioned, Mayor, there is a lot of background here, and I'm not going to repeat large portions of it, but for the purposes of the people looking in tonight and people in the audience who maybe haven't been following this, I would say that the first reading of these ordinances occurred back in mid-November, And as you recall, that was a time when the city and other local taxing bodies were very involved in detailed and sometimes tense discussions about the city's TIF program, its history, how we were spending money, how are we reporting the money, how we were talking with other taxing bodies about the potential benefits to them and so forth. And we've been working on that ever since at the JRB level and in one-on-ones with my counterparts, with your counterparts at the elected level. And I would say at this point that I have a lot of confidence that going forward, the proposed TIF 3, I'll call it to shorten it, can be managed under a new framework. Later on in this agenda, there are some provisions that the council's already looked at coming back to you, the Chapter 37 amendments and so forth, which will assure more public accessibility to the documents, the more participation by local taxing bodies in review of reports and so forth. So I have a high degree of confidence that we can do this right. TIF is a financing tool. It's actually an allocation tool, and it depends on trust. So I believe that trust, although it may have been lost at a point, I think has been restored and renewed, but it has to be tended all the time. And so the tool itself is not the problem, it's how people manage it. And I think we've learned that again. It's a lesson we've learned before, and we've learned it again. All these documents are united together. There is a timing issue, which I put some time into explaining in the background. There was the hope by a previous administration back in the summer that this matter would have been decided long before this, and money was spent on a consultant, considerable amount of money to prepare the documents that were necessary to establish, first of all, that there were blighting characteristics in the proposed TIF 3 geographic area. And to come to that conclusion, all of the parcels in that proposed geographic area had to be reviewed, and all the assessed valuations had to be certified. Within just a matter of a week or two, the county is probably going to, according to the county administrator, who spoke to this point in last week's JRB meeting, county supervisor assessments is probably going to move in the direction of certifying assessed valuations for these parcels again, which would mean we'd have to start over. Not only is that meaning more money, but it would mean an extension of time here to get us back to where we are tonight, which is a decision point, which I think is in order. So we recommend, we at the staff level recommend your approval tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been taken a lot of time. Time is of the essence, obviously. We do have two folks from the audience who would like to speak to this item before I open it up for any council discussion prior to our final consideration. The first is Steve Capitan. Steve Capitan and then John Anderson. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
At past meetings, the council has heard my views about the potential for effective use of TIF funds and the potential for misuse of TIF funds. So tonight I won't repeat those views. My appeal to you tonight is simply that as you consider specific projects within this or any other TIF district, you will always keep in mind the awesome responsibility that you have in investing funds provided by other taxing districts. In fact, most of the funds for any TIF project will come from other taxing districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. John Anderson? Hello, Andy.
How you doing? This is John Anderson, 4th Ward. Anyway, I don't know how many people in town here even know how the TIF works. And when they started this back in the 80s and the 90s, when Bill was working here then, and I was building a new house, they worked real good. First, you have to hire an outside legal firm to lay out the new TIF district. You furnish the area and the boundaries, and they in turn come up with the dollar value of the property, and they also come up with the amount that you can borrow money on. Now see, you don't wait till you collect the tax money until you pay for this. You go out and borrow money, and then you have to pay that borrowed money back with tax receipts. And TIF 1 and 2, I don't know which one it was, were started in the 80s and 90s. Values were slowly on the rise of property. The city saw the opportunity to revitalize the Pond Street, Fisk Avenue, and North 4th Street neighborhood. That turned out real good. And then they also ran it down Sycamore Road so they could run sanitary sewer and water supply to the county farm property, which then was developed into all these stores and also a housing project. And then all this property wasn't on the tax rolls. It belonged to the county. So the city and the county, they decided on how they're going to divvy up the spoils here. And not only on real estate tax, but also sales tax. And then when they started doing the downtown area, I think they started it in 2008. And they wanted to cover Lincoln Highway from the Kishwaukee River east to 7th Street, I believe. But it was part of TIF 1 or 2, I don't know which one. Anyway, building started to slow down, home building in town, and property values dropped. So they spent about $18 or $20 million on the downtown project. And they put the paper bricks in on 2nd, 3rd Street. They paved the parking lot. And they also, the three restaurants downtown that are on sale right now, they're for sale, they all received outside patios on the sidewalk. And that really is the only private property that really got a hold of a little TIF money. All the rest of it was on the city.
Yeah. You're at 3 minutes now, John.
Okay. Anyway, they had money left over. I couldn't believe it had money left over. So they used it to pay for the seats for the Egyptian Theater. But anyway, just to keep it short here, how do you expect to attract new customers from out of town, strangers, to buy? And when the real estate in the city of DeKalb has so many for sale signs, not just downtown, all over town. And proper rental property, the owners don't want to talk about it, all the empty units they have. But by the amount of for rent signs you see around town, it isn't just up at the college area, it's all over. So there must be a vacancy of about 20 to 25%.
Would you try to wrap it up now,
yeah,
John?
I am. I'm wrapping it up. I use some of Steve's time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Oh, when are you going to, when do we, with Channel 14, do they go home on weekends? No weather forecast Saturday and Sunday for a couple of weekends.
I had not heard that, John, but we'll check it out.
You heard it now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We've heard our city manager's presentation with considerable background material. We've looked at these in first reading and approved those. This is in a package called the establishment of TIF 3. And now I would entertain any comment from council prior to our roll call vote. Roll call, please.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
No.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7 aye, 1 nay.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Number 2, ordinance 2018-085, adopting Chapter 37 Tax Increment Financing Regulations. This again is on second reading. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Fagan. Once again, Bill, you briefed upon this a little bit
Right.
in your past presentation, but
Right.
perhaps you'd like to speak to
Just-
this.
There are some points that had been discussed by the council before I was in office, so I thought I'd replicate them here.
Sure.
And provide a little bit of assessment of where we're at with the JRB's consideration of this as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Before we have questions, we have one other speaker who indicated they'd like to speak to this item, and that, once again, is Steve Capitan. Would you like to speak to this item? Not another one, Steve? Okay, I think you wanted to speak to item 2. Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, so no one from the audience would like to speak to this item. Any questions as we prepare for second reading of this regulation? This is the Chapter 37, which really was brought up as a result of some discussions at JRB and other discussion throughout the community as we discussed tax increment financing. Okay, any questions or any comments? None? Roll call. Excuse me. Alderman Verbic.
I just wanted to say great
Sure.
work on getting things tightened up and cleaned up, and where I was not supportive previously, now I'm
Thank you.
supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any further comment? If not, roll call, please.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 3, ordinance 2019-006, amending Chapter 2, City Council. This is second reading. Entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Fagan. Bill, would you like to speak to this
Yeah,
item?
I would just very briefly, but I think probably the matter of the evening is what you addressed at the top of the meeting tonight, Mayor, and that's the process for public comment. But before we get to that, there are a couple other things in this ordinance as well. And with respect to the substantive proposals, there is a provision that clarifies the ability of the council to approve the consent agenda and approve a waiver of second reading and so forth, which I'm sure you've looked at. There's also a proposal to eliminate the quarterly discussion, planning, and vision meetings to be offset at the council's suggestion with an alternative, which would be, and this was proposed at the January 28th meeting. If I understand it, it was to have at least one annual retreat to formulate annual strategic goals for our organization, rather than a formulaic quarterly process that may or may not lead to specific strategic objectives. So that I don't have the outline of what that would look like, but that might be a way to revise this part of the code. Also, there is a removal of the language that would have permitted penalties for council members who don't attend meetings. That's still in the code. If you don't want to keep it in the code, we should address that. There are also some provisions relating to approval of meeting minutes that would make it this ordinance more compliant with our Illinois Open Meetings Act. And Also, there's a provision that deals with the adoption of the Roberts Rules of Order under Home Rule powers. With respect to the process for public comment, I have weighed in on this before. I feel very strongly that we are making more than a good faith effort, really a very strong effort to keep the public informed. The televising of the meetings, the posting. My last tenure, we didn't have a website, and we've got a website. Every piece of information you see is available to the public in the same period of time. It goes up on a Thursday night no later than 5 p.m. by your direction, and people can look at it over the weekend and can talk about it. We have local media, which I think right now it's never been as active in reporting on the business of this city government. I'm delighted with that, and I'm thankful to our media friends for that. And this doesn't mention all of the other social media opportunities that people have. You can be texted, you can be emailed, you can, of course, you can be phone called. You can have aldermanic meetings. I don't know if those go on. There's lots and lots of access to you and for you to have access to others. But mostly what concerns me, and we've seen it already tonight, it was just a smaller version of what I saw when I sat here on December 18th, where somebody spoke at almost every item on the 20 to 25 items that I sat through. And that is that this is a deliberative body. This is not a casual group session that we have to talk about issues that occurs a couple times a month. This is one of 2 nights a month that the people that we elect get to talk to one another. So when I say deliberative body, I mean that you talk to one another. And it just breaks up that opportunity in my mind when I may introduce a topic and then we pause. And then you are thinking about what the last comment was from the floor possibly, not the last comment that one of you might have made. And I don't know of any other deliberative body, a legislative forum such as this, that would allow for that kind of continuous, disconnected interruption. It defeats the democratic process in my mind, and I feel very strongly about that. You may not feel as strongly, but as an American historian, I feel very strongly about that. Hence, I recommended this.
Well, let's prove what you're talking about. We have a discussion from the audience. Steve Capitan, would you like to interrupt us with your thoughts?
But I think we need some help on counting, because I don't remember anyone speaking to more than 3 items in the last few months that I have been attending councilman meetings religiously. I'd like to address 2 of the proposed changes. First, a question. Is the single motion to waive and pass on second reading after first reading has been passed? Is that the case?
The council has the ability to frame a motion in whatever format you would like. I think it's been the experience of council that you typically make them as second motions, but there have been times over the past couple of years where the council has made a single motion to approve an ordinance and to waive second reading. But again, I think your customary practice is receiving and filing and then a second motion to waive second reading and approve, as Alderman Finucane commonly says.
That's an important distinction, because if it is in that fashion where you move and pass on first reading, then if you choose, move and pass in one motion, the waiver and the passage in that second motion, that's fine. But the importance of having the 2 motions is that someone may choose to support an item, but they do not wish to have it rushed through and waived second reading. If you do it in one motion, you take away that option from that council member, and I think that that would be a mistake. Secondly, I'd like to comment on the public participation proposed changes. I agree with Bessie's comments at the beginning of the meeting in which she sees value in public comments being close in time to council deliberations during the meeting. I would also make the point that over the last few months, there have not been an inordinate number of speaker requests by the public. I don't know where he finds this, and I would stand to be corrected if you want to look at the record. If we look at the record, that nowhere close to the number of speakers has occurred as the city manager has indicated. Mayor, I like the way you handled it tonight. You gave people the option of speaking at the beginning of the meeting or at the time the item is listed on the agenda. This option approach would, I believe, facilitate the flow of the meeting because some people would choose the beginning and provide the public more flexibility in offering their views. The way that we've allowed the public to speak at the time of the agenda item has been in place for decades. And I would urge the council to think twice before abandoning that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Points well taken. Now, let's have some discussion here, and Alderman Fanouken.
Well, as I stated at the meeting last time, that I'm a believer that we should provide the option for a public person to participate either in the area of public participation at the meeting at the beginning or on the specific item when time arrives, just as the mayor did this evening. I think there is some value on speaking to that particular item at that time, so the time doesn't pass, that doesn't get lost in any other discussions that we have during the meeting that night. But at the same time, just because we offer the option to speak at both times doesn't mean they get to speak twice to the same agenda item. I think that's an important distinction to hold in place. And Steve, if I may, I'll use you as an example. Steve very well could have spoke to this item early and then come back now, but I don't think that's what we want to have happen. We want them just to have the one time. So I think that's where I'd stand on it. And as the ordinance is written, I would like to offer an amendment that that's what we do, is we offer the option to speak either early or at the time of the agenda item comes up, and but not to have the two turns. So Dean, I hope you understand how I meant that.
Sounds like that would likely be an amendment to section 2.04D relating to the right of the public to speak to council. We could certainly frame it in the fashion that you described, that instead of limiting it to just comment at the time of public participation, it would either be at the time of public participation or at the time of presentation of the agenda item. It would be a little bit challenging to administer or enforce that, not knowing necessarily what people would be speaking to, but we could certainly make that policy.
Well, I understand that, but my point is, though, if they come up in public participation and speak to an agenda item, then I think the mayor could recognize that and then not allow them that second turn later when we're on that specific item.
That is possible, Alderman Fanouken, but puts the mayor in an awkward position of having to bully potentially somebody coming to the podium not knowing what they're going to say. As Dean said, you'd have to interrupt the person pretty quickly into their comment if they're speaking, say, for a second time, which might not be well received.
Well, but if we continue to use the process of having them fill out a form to what they want to speak to, I think that eliminates that possibility. I think that's how we can control it through that method.
I'll second that.
Is that an amendment?
Yes, I had offered that.
Okay. Dean, can you see where that amendment would fit then? Could you wordsmith that?
I do. Again, I think that would be an amendment to section 2.04D 1 and 2 to reflect the comments of Alderman Fanouken.
So you're comfortable with wordsmithing what Alderman Fanouken just said, and Alderman Verbeek, you're comfortable that what Alderman Fanouken said fits well with you, and you're confident that Dean can do that. Let me throw a wrinkle into this. Maybe it isn't a wrinkle. If somebody comes in now and wants to speak to the next item, can they bring that sheet up to the city clerk and speak to that item?
That's exactly what I'm indicating. So that if somebody arrives to the meeting late and wants to speak to an item later, they would still be able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's see if there's a comfort level with that. Is there any further discussion?
Yes.
On the amendment or overall?
On the amendment, right. Alderman Fagan.
I really don't see where we need to make the amendment on this. People reach out to us before our council meeting, whether it's phone call, email, text, whatever, that what their wishes are. There's nothing lost between that time and the time that we're up here discussing it. It is always in our mind. If a person wants to discuss it at the beginning of the meeting, it's not going to get lost. And Capitan just pointed that out. He brought up of what Bessie brought up on at the beginning of the meeting. So that goes to show on we don't lose it. And you know, I have to go along with the city manager on this. We're the only government body that allows this, that does this, and we're probably the only government body that probably sticks around till 11:30 at midnight at certain times because of those reasons. So, excuse me, I'm talking. So that's where my feeling is to go along with the way it is presented to us.
Thank you. Alderman Orico.
I think giving individuals the option of speaking either at the beginning of the meeting or when the item is presented preserves flexibility both for individuals and for the council. I think certainly there are times that people want to speak early because frankly they don't want to stay around until 10 o'clock when their item might be show up on the agenda. So I think that's a reasonable option for us.
Alderman Jacobson.
Again, in seeing over the last couple meetings, the difference in getting through again tonight what is otherwise a very deep agenda, and we're moving through it rather quickly. And being from the time when some of those meetings went till 1 in the morning, again, I think the reality of what I've seen up until this point is that the significant time hog in the meetings actually came from staff reports. And they were very in-depth and very long and very drawn out. Again, now that the city manager has gone to the synopsis is back in the agenda, gone and understanding that the backup still is as in-depth, if not more in-depth, and that everyone has access to that backup. Again, Bill made the comment that there wasn't a website when he was here last time. Now there is. The opportunity to go out there and get the information, if you want to be fully informed on a topic, is certainly there. And I had this exact argument with a resident this week, and him saying, well, how do you know everyone has it right in front of them when they're sitting at home at the meetings? Again, the reality is we prep for these meetings. We spend several hours of our time getting prepped to have informed and valid discussion and to understand the issues that we're deliberating and debating up here. I'm not saying every community member, A, wants to do that, or B, has the ability with their time schedules to do that. But the option is there. If they want to be immersed in the data and the backup and the understanding and all those things, they have that ability. And I think, again, going back, I can think of about a handful of meetings where the public comment has really been exhaustive and exhausting to a point, over an hour, and they were community-wide, very hot-button topics and very important topics. And I think to give the ability for the people to come out and have that say and participate in the governance, especially when it's important to them, is important. And I appreciate Bill's motion that gives them the opportunity, again, to come out and say something at the beginning of the meeting so they don't have to sit here till the end to speak on their one item or the one thing that's important to them on this agenda. Again, I think there's a very easy way to wordsmith that, to give people the opportunity and the option to participate at a level that they feel they're having their say. And I think that's what we want to encourage here, and we don't want to discourage that.
Yeah, and your point is well taken. The staff reports have taken, in the past, seemingly an inordinately long period of time. And I think Bill has done an excellent job, if you look at the background material over the last month, to give us a one paragraph or so verbiage explaining that. What we've done in the past is we just simply said, if you speak to an item on the agenda, you have to wait. With this new proposed revision, and I agree wholeheartedly that I see no problem with somebody speaking either at the beginning or if they opt during that time. You know, I know that flies in the face of what Bill wants to do, and I'll see what this council decides. I'm not really uncomfortable with that because I haven't seen an inordinate amount of time being lost for somebody speaking. Again, the burden of proof is on me. We got to keep it to 3 minutes, or thus. I interrupted Andy twice tonight. If this goes into effect, I might interrupt him at 3 minutes and say that's it. So it does put a burden of proof, I think, on me, or in the mayor's position. Alderman Verbeek?
But what I've noticed over the last number of months, and certainly to the viewers out there, is public participation can occur regularly. And what I've noticed is the improved timeliness of staff responses to the public and alderman responses to the public. I think that's not something I recognized when I first took office. So I think the more that we have that real timely communication among staff and the public, among aldermen and mayor to the public, I think there will be less of an importance of someone trying to make it down here on a Monday night, for example. They get that responsiveness in real time.
Any further comment? We're now voting on the amendment, and the amendment has been made by Alderman Fanouken and seconded by Alderman Verbeek, was it?
Yes.
Okay. That we amend that public participation article, which would allow someone to speak to any item on the agenda or any item not on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. During the course of the meeting, if that person has not opted to speak to an item that's on the agenda, they could clearly speak to that during the time that the discussion is taking place. Is that a reiteration that makes sense?
You summed it up very well.
Okay. Roll call.
Verbeek.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
No.
Noriko.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7 aye, 1 nay.
Okay, that was the passage of the amendment. Is there any further discussion on any other facets of Chapter 2 City Council? Alderman Jacobson.
Obviously, you know, one of my pet projects is the discussion, planning, and vision meetings. I'd like to have some discussion as to where the council would like to go in some sort of a direction. At least my understanding at the last meeting was that several of us supported keeping some iteration of that I don't have a problem with annual if that's the preferred method, but I'd like some answer to that before it's deleted. The only other comment that I would bring up is, in realizing that we live in interesting times politically, and realizing that several elections, both locally here in the city and elsewhere, have gone effectively unopposed as they come up for re-election. I have some slight worry that in taking the language out that effectively requires a council member to be here with some penalty, that it would give the opportunity for someone merely to run to take a paycheck. And that you can see a situation in an unopposed election where someone could basically sit in the seat and never show up here, and never show up to deliberate, never show up to a meeting. And there is no penalty for that other than wait 4 years and vote them out of office. And in seeing both elected and appointed officials in our city elsewhere that have had issues either with attendance or with competence or other realities, and not having that check and balance anywhere on that position, but for the fact that the mayor has the ability to speak to them. Again, while I think our code is rather archaic in saying that the mayor can direct the police chief to effectively bring one of us here in handcuffs, and I would hope that we never have that authority. The mayor can direct, under our code, the mayor can direct the police chief to effectively bring a council member here by force if they don't want to come. Again, the reality is with the political times we're in, what if 4 council members decided that they would prefer to be obstructionists and just not show up, and you could never call a city council meeting to quorum? That scares me. The ability for that to happen and to bring everything to a grinding halt scares me. The hope is obviously it would never happen. The reality is it's never happened, at least to my knowledge, to this point. But there should be some methodology in there that you are responsible to your voters. You are responsible to show up to these meetings. You are responsible to do the work, even if it's hard, even if you don't like it, even if you have other things going on. This is what you ran for, and this is what you signed up for. And again, before you throw that out with the bathwater in this case, I think there's probably more modern ways of handling it or dealing with it. I think that there's probably a fair way to, again, wordsmith that to a way that makes sense. But to throw it out and to leave no protection against those things, I have a little heartburn over.
Do you want to suggest then that we keep that in the Chapter 2 City Council at this point, and then we perhaps can determine at a later date how we want to change the language, or do you want to do that now?
For mere simplicity's sake, I would probably keep both the discussion, planning, and visioning meetings in and that language that removes that, only to have a further discussion at a cow on it and bring those back with changes. The reality is, again, they're archaic, and we're not following the discussion, planning, and visioning. Rather than make 2 separate motions, I would make 1 motion that we leave both of those in for further discussion in an upcoming cow to get those where the council sees fit.
Bill?
I just wanted to note, I don't know if you can pull this up, but the ordinance itself, the draft, it may be suggesting the middle ground that Alderman Jacobson is suggesting. Actually, what you have in your ordinance draft tonight says that the word quarterly is removed, but the title says discussion, planning, and vision meetings. And then the text that follows says, in addition to all other meetings contemplated herein, your regular meetings, the City Council may conduct 1 or more special meetings annually for the purpose of discussion, planning, and visioning. 1 or more of the meetings may be conducted as a City Council retreat if acceptable to the City Council, and so on and so forth, and they all have to be conducted pursuant to the Open Meetings Act.
My only recommended change that would be to change the may to shall, understanding the very different distinction between them.
That's what's in your ordinance for tonight. Amend that.
Alderman Fagan.
Just so we can keep going here, or not keep going here. In order to get one of these meetings, what needs to be done? Just 2 aldermen need to ask for it? I mean, really, the thing is, we're talking about will or shall. I mean, to have one of these, we left shall in it, and if the 2 aldermen thought that we should have that meeting, is that all we need?
And some consideration of whatever else might be happening at the time, if we were to drop what we were doing and, and just do that. Obviously, that isn't what you would intend, but, that's all it takes, 2 aldermen. You're exactly right.
No, actually, if I may, I believe code says 3 aldermen to request a special meeting.
Yeah, so section 2.05 does contemplate either the mayor or 3 aldermen. And obviously, you'd still have to have the 48 hours notice and such. The reason that we had used may in lieu of shall is it would be our recommendation to not include mandatory provisions in the code if the council's not fully committed to always following those. And the council has had the discussion, vision, and planning meetings in the ordinance now for several years and has not followed its own code requirements.
Mayor, and I'm sorry, Alderman Fanouken, you're absolutely right, but what I had in mind was if you were to ask us to put together a strategic planning session, it would take a little while to do, and I assume I'd have to come back to you and say, here's what I would propose, the people would be involved, topics I would ask you about, and so forth. So in that case, it only takes 2 aldermen to say, city manager, come back to us with a plan.
Alderman Favor.
Yeah, I'm with the way that you read from 205B, and the way that it's written, I'm in agreement with that. I'm okay with following that the way it's summarized here in our documentation, that we can call a meeting.
Repeat that again?
Well, the way Bill had just read practically all of it, but it's summarized here that we'll have, perhaps annually a meeting, but in here it says annually or as often, let me find the exact word, 1 or more conducted by the city council, could be as a retreat. So we're not limited to a single meeting, whereas previously we prescribed we were going to meet every single quarter and we didn't. This is, we could meet every single quarter if we wanted to 1 year. Maybe there's something going on, we really need to meet a lot. We could do that. Otherwise, we could meet annually. If there's nothing that nobody wants to talk about, we don't have to meet. But in here, that's where the may and it's not a requirement. So it's there, we can do it. We just have to decide and do it. So I'm okay with the way the ordinance is being proposed.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Noriko.
Haven't we always had the ability to have special visioning planning meetings without it being in the code, saying may or will?
You can, somebody mentioned a cow, committee of the whole. You can direct the city manager at one of the upcoming meetings to dedicate that portion of the council's agenda to strategic planning. It doesn't have to be a special meeting. It can be a consideration to kick it off on a regular agenda. So there are other ways that you could put on something like that on the agenda, let the public comment on it, you can comment on it, and then we give some shape to it, and then we start thinking about a special meeting.
As a matter of fact, it was Alderman Jacobson about a year ago or so said to me something to the effect, we're supposed to be having these vision meetings. We called upon those, and I said, what? So my solution, if you will, I don't know if it was a good one, was to say, okay, we're going to have more committees of the whole, cows, dedicated to specific visioning type of things. And I think we tried to do that. If you take a look at all of our cow topics over the last year. Now, having said that, we also had a cow on meetings. And we sat here twiddling our thumbs and didn't come up with much. Do you remember that?
Yep.
I mean, so, because I had some of the very same questions. Yeah, like this, Ray, that's what I, you know, isn't that a twiddling thumb? So what I'd like to suggest is that we revisit this. We have amended the most important item, in my opinion, and that is the public participation, and let's move forward. And if we need to bring back some specific suggestions to once again amend this, I'd be comfortable with that. Alderman Jacobson.
Playing the devil's advocate.
No.
We had a city manager that actively opposed putting this into code. We had a mayor that was complicit in either her nefarious behavior or her lack of desire to follow council will. And that's why it was forced into code. Again, this is a directive to staff to hold these once a year. This is a legal requirement of the city code for the staff to put these together. And that staff intentionally violated the law of the city council. We agreed in our last discussion that there's value and there's merit in these meetings. Yes, we may have more than one. Again, I'm willing to go down to one, but again, the difference between may and shall is it is direction to staff that we will have at least one of these a year and that they should prepare for it. When we have the cow on meetings, again, it would have been helpful had we had some direction from an informed member of staff to push us in that direction. When we see now a city manager that knows what they're doing and knows how to get these meetings done, comes up with solutions immediately. Again, when the city manager is focused on those things, when different councils, including the mayor, are aware that that is the law of the land here, that you will have one of these things, you can plan for those things ahead of time. You can plan to put topics on there. You can do those things. But on the flip side, when it's a may, even when it was a shall, even when it was a requirement, a city manager that doesn't want the discussion of the council, a city manager that wants to run this as a fiefdom, a city manager that wants to run the city her way and not our way as the elected officials of the community, was able to do so. And merely rolling back those requirements, you leave that opening for future councils. And again, I would hope that that doesn't happen, but to put the correct guardrails, to put the correct emphasis, again, understanding that we all seemed to agree last meeting that there is value in these things. It's not just a mayor shall issue. It's putting that condition on future councils and on future staffs to put those meetings and make them a priority for the benefit of the people they serve.
We don't have a city manager now that befits that description.
Agreed.
Okay, and so having said that, what I'd like to suggest is that we consider passing Chapter 2 City Council under second reading with the one amendment that we've discussed tonight and that we have passed. Again, that which is a very significant portion, i.e. public participation, and charge our city manager, working in concert with the mayor and any other councilman who would be so interested, to address those two items that we discussed tonight. Bill, are you fairly clear with?
I am. We'll bring this back to you again if.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is pass this tonight.
Oh.
That means we have Chapter 2 City Council. We have that on the books, and then we come back for further amendments.
Okay, I'm happy to bring it back as you've recommended amendments to the next meeting. And you don't have to act on the main motion tonight. So you can see what it will look like.
You want to postpone then second reading tonight and have Bill come back with the other provisions?
Yes.
Are you comfortable with that? Bill, are you?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
We need a motion to postpone.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Jacobson, seconded by Alderman Fagan, that we postpone second reading of this ordinance provided with the provision that we have some further staff wordsmithing on a couple of key provisions that we've discussed tonight.
And that is to our next regular city council meeting?
Correct.
Is that reasonable, Bill?
It is.
Okay, I think it's something we can work on. Okay, any further discussion? This is a motion and a second to postpone. Roll call.
Mayor, could I have the, who made the motion and who made the second again?
Absolutely. Who made the motion?
Jacobson.
Alderman Jacobson, seconded by
Fagan.
Alderman Fagan. Thank you. Roll call.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupidja. Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. First reading now for ordinances, item number L on the agenda. Number 1, omnibus approval of ordinances establishing backup special service areas as follows. Ordinances 2009-008, Fatties, Culvers, SSA 15. Ordinance 2019-009, Popeyes, SSA 16. Ordinance 2019-010, University Village, SSA 17. Ordinance 2019-011, University Plaza, SSA 18. Ordinance 2019-012, First Rockford Nelson, SSA 19. Ordinance 2019-013, Casey's, SSA 20. Ordinance 2019-014, Cornerstone, SSA 21. Ordinance 2019-015, Sonic, SSA 22. Ordinance 2019-016, Bandits Castle, SSA 23. Ordinance 2019-017, 1114 Blackhawk Road, SSA 24. Ordinance 2019-018, Home 2 Suites, SSA 25. Ordinance 2019-019, 1792 Sycamore Road, SSA 26. Ordinance 2019-020, Plaza DeKalb, SSA 27. And Ordinance 2019-021, establishing an active special service area for 924 Greenbrier Road, SSA 28. This is first reading. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Alderman Noriko, seconded by Alderman Favor. Bill, if you'd speak to this item, please.
Yeah, that's a very busy title. There are 14 properties in this particular ordinance. And the background tells you a little bit about special service areas and what they are usually intended to do. This is rather unique. Usually a special service area attends, or our familiarity, it has to do with the subdivision. And there's some portions of it that, like retention ponds oftentimes, little parks and things, and we're a little concerned over time, are they going to be cared for by the residents? And so they impose upon themselves, it takes a majority +1 to accept this. In this case, these are all single properties. 13 of them would be dormant SSAs, which means right now they're being kept up fine, but the owners have agreed that if there's ever a slacking in that the city has the ability to activate these SSAs and come to an amount of tax that comes from that property to take care of the problem. Now, there is one active one, and the reason it's on here is because the council at a previous meeting in 2018 had agreed to use some water fund money to help them sprinkle the building. That's 924 Greenbrier. That's Phi Sigma Kappa, I believe. Phi Kappa Sigma, excuse me, to the fraternity. And so this explains that they are in agreement that this should be done. This will help them pay back the amount that they would receive for that sprinkling system. So we recommend the council's approval. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any further discussion on any of these items? Roll call, please.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Number 2, ordinance 2019-022, amending Chapter 15, refuse, recyclables, and waste collection, Section 15.10, collection, processing, and/or disposal of refuse, recyclables, and landscape waste in the Central Business District. This is first reading. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Noriko, seconded by Alderman Verbic. Any discussion? Before that, City Manager Nicholas, would you?
This is the matter that you discussed.
Right, we discussed.
On
Right.
January 28th. We brought back the ordinance that
You brought this
shows
back
the
in
same
ordinance
pricing.
form. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. Are you requesting waiver of second reading?
Yes.
Anyone?
I'll move that we waive second reading and approve.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Fanouken and seconded by Alderman Fagan that we waive second reading and approve this ordinance. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
No.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7 aye, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Ordinance number 3, number 3, ordinance 2019-023, amending Chapter 38, Section 38.01, definitions, Section 38.07, classification of liquor licenses, and Section 38.13, restrictions applicable to hospitality sales. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fagan, seconded by Alderman Verbic. Bill, would you explain this, please?
Thank you. Jim Mason's still in the audience.
Yeah.
There he is. I couldn't see him. Yes. Well, Jim is a proud owner of property at 1500 Sycamore Road, and he would like to create something that would be unique in our community. That would be an indoor sports simulation facility. Explain just a little bit about what that means. There's a combination of video, camera, and computer equipment that allows participants to simulate their engagement in certain types of sports, whether it's golf, soccer, or other games. And as part of this build-out, there would also be a place where people could have light meals, and there'd be a bar in the middle and so forth. So if it was just for people 21 and over, there would still be some zoning considerations and some other things to do, but we wouldn't have to create any amendments to our liquor license. But in this case, we're concerned, and so is the owner, Jim Mason, that there be proper surveillance and supervision of persons who might be under 21, who might be working on their golf swing and they're within 50 feet of the beer pool. So do we have any experience like that? Yes, we do, in our bowling alleys where people can get a beer and take it over to the lanes and be bowling with their grandchildren if they want. So it's possible. There's a higher expectation of supervision on the part of the management and staff of the facility, of course, but we have entertained that. The proposed revisions, we believe, would meet those expectations and concerns, and so we've recommended your approval.
Okay. Any discussion? Alderman Stupedja.
Well, first, I do have a question on these gaming tables. Does the city get are they licensed? Do we get a salary or income from them, a tax?
That's a good question.
The city does receive a relatively small annual licensure fee, but are you talking about the simulators or the video gaming terminals?
The video games.
The video gaming terminals themselves, there's a tax collected by the state, and a portion of that is remitted back to the city. And it has become a pretty significant source of revenue for the city across the different establishments that have them.
Thank you. I thought that was how it worked. My next thought is for something like this, and I do realize that we have this type of thing going on in bowling alleys and so forth, but would there be surveil cameras in this in the parcel, in the building, where someone would be monitoring them, or someone from the police force could occasionally monitor them monthly or something?
Generally speaking, the layout, and I don't have it in front of me here, but you may have seen it, allows eyes on, but if it's, what the advantage of a camera, and there may be security cameras, Mr. Mason could speak to that, is that at different points around in the corners and the shadows and so forth, you can see if something's going on, and later on it might be useful, particularly if there was an arrest for some reason.
I think it would be useful, but they're not useful unless somebody's going to be there to monitor them too, or somebody monitors a tape occasionally. I just have some concerns about that, that's all.
Any other comments or questions? This is first reading of this consideration of this ordinance. Roll call.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupedja.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
So we'll bring that back.
Item number 4, ordinance 2019-024, abating taxes levied for library and corporate purposes of the City of DeKalb for tax year 2018 library and bonds. This would be first reading of this ordinance. Some of the information was presented in Library Director Emily Faulkner's presentation earlier this evening, but I would like a motion, a second, and then we'll have City Manager Nicholas make some comments.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Fanouken. Discussion. Bill?
Just very brief background here, because I know that the council has been much involved with some options to get some credit to local taxpayers as a part of what has played out. In this case, what's proposed is a partial abatement of the 2018 library levy that will cover the $992,550 that was returned to local taxpayers. I understand that there was some consideration earlier about the possibility of sending checks and so forth, and for various reasons that wasn't chosen as the option. So we believe this is the way to do it, and there's been a fair amount of community discussion, I believe, about this.
Mhm.
We'd recommend that you approve this tonight on first and second reading.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this initially here on first reading. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupidja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. You want a second waiver of second reading on this?
I'll move that we waive second reading and move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Noriko, that we waive second reading and approve this ordinance. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupidja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
8 aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now, reports and communications. Council member reports. Alderman Jacobson.
None tonight. Thank you.
Did you say no report, David?
None tonight. Thank you.
Not tonight, okay. Alderman Fanouken?
I'd just like to commend obviously our Public Works, Fire, and Police, and any other city staff that's been involved in keeping the city able to move around over this extreme weather conditions we've suffered the last couple of weeks. You know, without them, the citizens would have a much harder time. And secondly, spring must be coming because pitchers and catchers report.
Tomorrow.
No, the next day.
Alderman Stupidja.
Nothing tonight.
Alderman Fagan.
Nothing.
Alderman Noriko.
No report.
Alderman Verbic.
There's been some consternation about special events in the city of DeKalb, and what I would like council and mayor to consider is the possibility of the creation of a commission on special events for the city of DeKalb. I'd like to see an unbiased group get together and decide what would be those special events that would be most beneficial to DeKalb, and an idea to help fund that by the growth in hotel motel tax, for example. Also, I'd like to remind everyone to join the Glidden Homestead for the next number of weeks for Super Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'll be there on the 19th to say a few words and enjoy the activities.
Thank you, Alderman Verbic. I'd like to make a comment on your suggestion, but first of all, I'll go to Alderman Favor.
No report.
Mike, I think your suggestion about a special events commission has considerable merit, based on the fact that we had considerable discussion regarding social activities that are hosted by the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau, that we had considerable discussion about the Chamber of Commerce and its role with us. We also have had considerable discussion with Mike Embry, who you know has continued to be very, very active in hosting events throughout this community. So I think your point is well taken. I hope we're able to do it. An addendum to that is this. With the cutback in city department heads, and as in a correlatively move, we have the possibility of less staff support for our boards and commissions moving forward. City Manager Nicholas and I have discussed this. I'm going to call on council to be of any assistance that you might be. We will try to make sure that our boards and commissions get the support logistically and staff support as much as we possibly can. But we just have to realize that we are stretched a little bit now with staff time, but we will be working with our boards and commissions very, very religiously and very expeditiously in moving forward in this respect, as long as you all understand where we are with that. That concludes my report. City Clerk Lynn Fazekas, do you have any report?
Yes, just a quick one. A couple of additions to the city clerk's page at the website. We have the list of municipal candidates there, and we also have the schedule for early and grace period voting, which does start this month. If you've gotten used to early voting, you should note that some of the locations and schedules that we've seen in the past have been cut back. So you'll want to be sure to double check that before you go.
Very good. Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it. Bill, any report on behalf of yourself as city manager?
Just two things. Like Alderman Fanouken, I thrill with the return of pitchers and catchers every year. It's a harbinger of spring. Can't come soon enough. More seriously, I guess that is serious. I mean that. But I had mentioned at the last meeting that I was going to come forward with a FOIA report, and it was going to be on the last meeting agenda of the month. This is not the last meeting agenda. I generally, like most city managers, I'm thinking about the next agenda before I come here. And already working on it, obviously, so it will be on the next one. My apologies for any confusion on that point.
Anything else, Bill? The city manager is requesting an executive session after our meeting tonight to discuss items pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 collective bargaining. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, moved by Alderman Jacobson, seconded by Alderman Fagan, that we recess for executive session. Roll call.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noriko.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
8 aye.
We are in recess for executive session.